Hello and welcome to Straight Bat, my weekly video blog where, as the title suggests, I comment with a straight bat. Now, just 2 weeks ago on the Straight Bat, I raised a very simple question. Is this man a terrorist? It provoked a strong response. I was referring there to Father Stan Swamy, a priest who at the age of 84 has been accused under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act in the Bhima Koregaon case of being a terrorist and a Maoist. Why? Because he works among the tribals. On extremely flimsy evidence, he is still in jail. Today I want to ask another simple question. Who will compensate these 3 young student activists for the 13 months that they have spent in jail without being granted bail? Till this week, finally, the Delhi High Court came out and granted them bail. I am referring to Natasha Narwal, to Devangana Kalita and Asif Tanha. 3 anti-CAA, Anti-Citizenship Act activists who last year participated in the protests that some believe were a prelude to the riots that followed in Delhi last February. These 3 young student activists in their 20s, arrested principally for their political views. 2 of them from Jawaharlal Nehru University, 1 of them from Jamia, arrested and dubbed terrorists. It is only this week, when the Delhi High Court granted them bail, that we have been able to give a face, in a sense, to the trauma which these 3 individuals in some way must have gone through in the last year. And remember, this is not an ordinary Delhi High Court bail order. It's a stinging indictment of the Delhi police, their masters in the Home Ministry, and indeed the criminal justice system of the country. And I want to read out just one line from that court order. We are constrained to express that it seems that in its anxiety to suppress dissent, in the mind of the state, the line between the constitutionally guaranteed right to protest and terrorist activity seems to be getting somewhat blurred. If this mindset gains traction, it will be a sad day for our democracy. Shockingly, instead of accepting this indictment, doing course correction, the Delhi police has attempted to brazen it out. They even delayed the release order of these 3 individuals for 48 hours, even coming up with a specious argument like saying we are trying to verify their addresses. For God's sake, the utter shamelessness of what the Delhi police was doing. 13 months they've been in jail. When the release order is given, you say we are sending our officers to verify their actual addresses? Really? I mean, the fact is, while the Delhi police has every right to appeal to the Supreme Court, this was a brazen bid to circumvent a court order simply because the police couldn't handle a judicial reprimand. To my mind, it is utterly shocking and reflects very poorly on the police leadership in the country and in the Delhi police at the moment. But I am not surprised either. We are a democracy in name, but at times a police state in reality. The police are meant to serve the citizen and the constitution. They serve their political masters. It is their political masters who decided that the anti-CAA protests are anti-national. It is the political masters who confused loyalty to the government with loyalty to the nation. It is the political masters who are selective in their interpretation of the law, and the police then follow orders that they are given. Which is why not a single BJP leader, many of whom were caught on tape making inflammatory speeches during the riots, have been touched. The fact is that a union minister was caught on tape saying "Goli maro salo ko," not even questioned. Why? Because the political masters don't want it, and the police are very obedient to their political masters. So much easier than to demonize these young student activists from Jamia and from JNU and call them anti-national. That fits in with a certain narrative that has been created in this country today. Let's be clear again. From the High Court order that the arrests of Natasha Narwal, of Devangana, Kalita and Asif Tanha under UAPA are clearly seen by the court as unlawful arrests, wrongful arrests. So I wish to ask therefore, who will compensate them for the 13 months that they've spent in jail, for the tragedy and the trauma their families have gone through? We can make an actor like Juhi Chawla pay 20 lakhs in compensation for an allegedly frivolous complaint she filed on the roll out of 5G. But who will pay for these activists and their agony and that of their family for the 13 months that they've spent in jail, as I said? Let's be also clear. This is not just about monetary compensation. Natasha Narwal's father, Mahabir Narwal, passed away while Natasha was in jail. She could not even go and see him. She could only attend his cremation. Nothing that can be done by the state now will roll back that fact that a brave daughter could not be by the side of her fine father because the police would not allow it. They saw her as a threat, as a terrorist. So who will compensate Natasha today? Or Devangana? Or Asif? Is the question I want to ask. In my view, there must be visible compensation. And this goes beyond monetary compensation, exemplary punishment to the police officers and their political bosses so that they think twice before repeating it again. At least strictures must be passed against them. Because let's be clear, this is not an isolated case. Anti-terror laws have been routinely misused in this country, irrespective of whoever has been in power in whichever state. Arbitrary pre-trial arrests are all too familiar in this country, particularly with anti-terror laws. I remember covering in the early 1990s the arrests of hundreds of farmers in Gujarat under TADA, the then anti-terror law. In fact, in Gujarat, even those who protested against the rise in milk prices were arrested under TADA at the time. The government was not a BJP government in Gujarat at the time. Narendra Modi was not the chief minister. Chiman Bhai Patel was the chief minister and there was a Congress government there at the time. TADA was replaced by POTA, Prevention of Terrorism Act, but nothing really changed. During POTA, a number of people were arrested, mainly from the minority community. Often on, again, very flimsy evidence, merely on suspicion. And the state where many of these, of the misuse of POTA took place was my home state again of Maharashtra, where there was no BJP government again at the time. There was a Congress NCP government in Maharashtra in the early 2000s and POTA was being misused. Let's be clear, as I said again. The fact is that these anti-terror laws confer a lot of powers in the state and the police. And once you confer arbitrary, discretionary powers to the police, then they are liable to be misused. A citizen's rights versus the police's powers is an unequal contest in this country. As for the lower courts, who repeatedly refused to grant these student activists bail for the last 13 months, these courts more often than not simply play along with what the police wants. That's the truth. Which is why I believe it's time to act. And the time to act is now, before more Devanganas, Natashas and Asifs are thrown up by our system, or Father Stan Swamy indeed. A final word. Earlier this week, I spoke on the day that the Delhi High Court order came to the mother of Devangana, Kalita. Kalita is a professor in Dibrugarh in Assam. Her husband is a fine doctor at the hospital there. I heard about this couple when I had gone to Dibrugarh a few months ago to cover the Assam elections. As I spoke to Kalpana that night on TV, I was struck by her quiet dignity that she showed. There was no hate or bitterness or polarized opinion on her part. She was speaking not just as a mother, but as an Indian citizen. No anger against the police. Instead, she said that she hoped that a day would come that the many others who were languishing in jail without legal support would get the same legal support that at least her daughter had got. I was really struck by her at that time. And when she said, I have no regrets and I am proud of my daughter, I felt like telling her, Kalpana, Kalita, I am proud of you. You are a true Indian citizen. You give us hope through your courage and your resilience and your fortitude. This is the India we want. An India free of bitterness and hostility and indeed violence. An India where people are not arrested for their political views, where the right to protest and the right to dissent is an integral part of our constitution and cannot be outlawed. You give us hope that tomorrow when someone dissents, he or she will not be seen as anti-national. And where the police will realize that their primary duty is to serve the citizen and the constitution and not their political masters. Think about it. That was the Straight Bat. Do subscribe to my YouTube channel for many more such videos. For now, stay well, stay safe. Namaskar. Jai Hind.